Well, because the most important message I wanted to get across was really to say sorry to my family, friends, colleagues, and constituents. Very clearly, I should not have swapped points with my ex-wife. You know, you should accept responsibility for what you do. It was a very stupid thing to do, and I very much regret doing it. I'm very sorry that I did do it. And that, of course, is the grounds of this particular offence. But there were also a lot of hurt that I inflicted on my family and on my ex-wife, which explains some of the behaviour that's gone on since. And I'm very sorry for that as well.
And people should believe you this time because you're admitting to having been a liar.
I think a lot of people understand that you can start with making a fairly small mistake, or what seems to be a very small mistake, and things spin out of control. And at any given point, it seems crazy that what is on the face of it, without realizing the full legal consequences, a fairly trivial issue of exchanging speeding points with your wife can spin into this massive, devastating set of consequences for family, for career, and for everything that you really care about. And I think that's one of the things where I had to basically say, this has got to stop, and I'm determined now just to put that behind me and say, I made a mistake, but I should have done that earlier.
And what made you change your mind? Why did you change your plea to guilty?
I changed my plea really for two reasons. One was that I did not want to go and perjure myself in a court. I think that there's an enormous difference between saying something. After all, you know, we all, I think, to get through life, have some experience of occasionally what people call white lies, but you don't go into court and you don't perjure yourself. And that, I think, is very fundamental. And the second thing is I'd very much hoped that by doing that I could spare some of the bloodiness in terms of the family. I did not want to go into court and have a battle over character or anything else with the mother of my three lovely children. And that's something that I felt very strongly. The closer I got to court, I really didn't want to do. So those were the two reasons.
But you didn't spare your family a lot of agony, did you? And excruciating details of your texts with your son have come out from court. Any sense that you might be at peace with relations with your family one day?
Well, I certainly very much hope that obviously the process of healing in the relationships, which have been very strained in the family, will proceed now that this is slowly getting behind us. And I absolutely feel that this whole process has intruded on family relationships, which can be very hurtful in a way that was one of the things that made me feel very strongly. I didn't want to put even more out there in a court case.
It's hard to imagine there could be much more. I mean, the details that people saw were awful.
Yes, they certainly were, but you have to remember, sadly, that that was police evidence that the police had on a search warrant, and so my ability to control any of that was very limited. And the key thing that I decided in terms of running into court, first of all, obviously, do not perjure yourself, but secondly, do not get into, I think the worst thing for any children, if they're involved in a divorce, is to see their parents being awful about each other, and I wasn't, and I never have been, and I don't intend to start doing that, as I say, about my ex-wife.
Do you forgive her? Do you understand why she acted the way she did?
I certainly understand the hurt that attached to the way in which our relationship broke up. I mean, I think that that was awful. I think that being put under surveillance by the news of the world for a substantial amount of time, for her suddenly to be confronted with the fact that I was having an affair with somebody else, and that inevitably having to happen rather quickly, precisely because otherwise it would have been known about through the newspapers. All of that was deeply shocking for somebody who's a private person, and that, I think, explains a lot of what's gone on.
At the heart of her evidence was a claim that you had a bullying relationship.
I entirely disagree. I'm not a bully, and I never have been a bully, and I never will be a bully. And that's something that I think is very clear from anyone who knows me.
Are you prepared for prison? Do you know what you're in for?
I visited prisons when I was Shadow Home Secretary, and I had a brief experience many years ago, being locked up in a foreign prison when I was involved in a car crash. Vehicles seemed to have something in my life, and I was on remand for a period, not knowing when I would be let out. So I have had experience, but obviously it is something which is very hurtful when you lose your freedom. That's the whole point of prison. It is the way in which people pay their debt to society in terms of a punishment, and I have to be prepared to accept the fact that this offence, swapping speeding points, normally carries a custodial sentence, and so that's obviously something that I've been thinking about and preparing for.
You were seen as a rival to Nick Clegg, even now him as leader. People thought you'd come out from the bracken and take over the party. You would lurk on the back benches for a while, challenge perhaps again, or be his successor if he fell. You were a cabinet minister. You were falling from great heights to get where you are now. Do you feel like a broken man?
I'm lucky in one respect, as I have a lot of good close friends who've been with me as friends for a long time, and I've also got good family relationships, some of them very strained, but others that are very strong. And I think that gives you enormous fortitude faced with these sort of circumstances. So I think my political career is very clearly over, but I think that I have other things to offer doing other things, and I will.
We spoke a number of times, you spoke to many people behind the scenes about what had and hadn't happened all those years back in 2003. You looked me in the eyes, as you did many others, and said, it didn't happen. I'm innocent. You lied again and again to people. What happens? Do you start believing the lie at any point?
I think the crucial point is the point that I've already made, which is that you can't believe that something that seems at the beginning to be a relatively minor infringement, that most people don't actually regard as a crime but as a traffic offence. That, for example, if a police officer is caught speeding, that doesn't end their career. If a judge is caught speeding, that doesn't end their career. So in the same way, and you don't make, unless you're involved in the legal system, you don't make that distinction between a speeding offence and signing a form, passing the points to someone else. And I think that's the key point, that it gets out of hand. And I should have put my hand up at the beginning, and I should have said sorry, and I should have got it out of the way, and I very much regret that I didn't. But once you get involved in that, it tends to spiral out. And a lot of the circumstances of that period between the first accusations being made in the press and now, I think only the detail of that will have to wait for other court cases, which are currently mean that I can't comment, but the full story will be told in the fullness of time.
The harsher view is that you lied and lied again to save your own career and didn't properly calculate the cost on your family and others.
Well, I certainly lied and lied again, and part of it was about saving my career, but it was also partly to try and avoid the consequences for my family, and that was the key point. I think I understood after a while what was likely to happen, and I don't think that my ex-wife did, for example, and I don't think that there was a full understanding of the effects that all this was likely to have on the family, not just in terms of my career and potentially the career of my ex-wife as well, but also on any money that might have been put aside for the kids to get them on the housing ladder or whatever it happens to be.
What might the next career be?
I don't know. I'll have to wait and see. But that's something I think I'll have some time to think about in prison.
And as you look over your shoulder at the career you're leaving, any messages to your party, the leader you once challenged for the leadership and many thought might challenge again if you got off?
I was absolutely delighted that Mike Thornton won the Eastleigh by-election. I think Mike will be a very good MP. One of the things that I will regret most is not being able to help people as a constituency MP get through some of their problems. But I think that Mike is a very worthy successor in that respect as a constituency MP, and I think that the party has shown that it is extremely resilient to have gone through a period, not just in the circumstances of my resignation, but then also a fantastically awful media campaign against Chris Rennard, and then to have come out at the end of that with winning the Eastleigh by-election, I think shows that the party is extremely resilient, and that the causes that I fought for have got some worthy champions who will carry it on.
You go to prison bowed, apologetic, but not broken.
Well, I'm certainly apologetic. I'm very sorry to so many people for what I've done and for the way I handled it, and I very much regret that. I regret that I didn't own up earlier on, and hopefully have dealt with it and got it out of the way. And I think obviously there have been great consequences as a result of that. We'll have to see what the future holds, but I will hope for the best.
Thank you very much.